All right, folks. Hey, what's happening? This is Steve Cavanaugh with the Southern Maryland Real Estate Investors Group. I am super excited to have my good friend Shaun McCloskey with LifeonAIRE with me today. Shaun, what's happening, man?
What's going on, man? How are you?
Good. Look, I want to have fun today. This is my objective, is just have fun. Let's kind of clown around a little bit. I want you to tell me some stories. I want you to tell me all about the LifeonAIRE stuff coming up. Before we get started, I just want to throw a little teaser out for everybody. So Shaun is going to be in town. He's going to be in the D.C. area March 31st through April 2nd to do the LifeonAIRE Seminar at the Sheraton in Tyson's Corner. So Shaun, welcome. It's a pleasure for me to be able to interview you. This is wonderful, man. What's happening today?
Thanks, man. Not a lot. It's a good day. I'm actually getting ready to fly to D.C. tomorrow, actually, to go speak at one of the RIAs there. So I should be in your neck in the woods here pretty soon.
Awesome. Well,
yeah.
Look me up, man, when you're in town. Look, Shaun, I want to get started, man. Just tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got started in real estate, and we'll go from there, man.
All right. Let's see. Started back in 2003, and it's kind of crazy to tell you this because you and I know each other so well. But
Right.
Listeners know, but started back in 2003. Kind of got into rehabs with my first deal. Lost a ton of money on my first deal and had a lot of really big. Matter of fact, I lost $86,000 on my very first deal. So
wow,
that's my claim to fame. And second one that took almost a year later, ended up making a little bit of money, and then that turned into this whole pre-foreclosure business that for the next probably 4 or 5 years I was cranking out lots and lots of deals. I got to the point where I was eventually, after licking my wounds from that first deal, I got to the point where I was closing about 70 deals a year. And so that's, in a nutshell, that's at least how my business got started. From a personal level, I'm just a married guy with 3 kids. I live here in St. Louis, Missouri, and try to teach people how to live this LifeonAIRE lifestyle now is kind of my main focus. Try to help people to stop working 80 hours a week and actually have a purpose behind what they're doing, which might sound a little bit corny, but the fact of the matter is when you've got purpose behind what you're doing and you love what you're doing and you don't have to do it 70 hours a week anymore like I used to have to do, life is a totally different deal. So
awesome.
Hopefully we'll spare a little bit on the call today about that.
Awesome. And plenty of time to play your guitar collection?
That's right. Got to goof off on the guitar every now and then,
right.
Yeah. God knows I can't support my family off of that habit, but yeah.
And I can't either. So for those of you listening, Shaun and I have jammed many times together. Shaun's a great guitarist and plays in a handful of bands, right? You still play?
Yeah, I saw something on Facebook that said musicians, the only people dumb enough to take $10,000 worth of gear, load it up in a $400 car, and drive 100 miles to make $50.
That is so true, man. So true. And these days with the kids getting up at 7 o'clock, if you get in from a gig at 3 o'clock in the morning, I mean, you really don't get much sleep,
Yeah, a little different than it used to be, but it's still fun.
Well, cool, man. Well, look, man, let's get into the LifeonAIRE stuff. So there's plenty of people listening that haven't heard of LifeonAIRE or maybe have heard of LifeonAIRE but don't really know what it's about. So take me down that path, man. What is LifeonAIRE?
I can almost sum it up. This epiphany hit me the other day. We've had such a hard time summing up what it means to be a LifeonAIRE for years. And of course, the easy definition is, if you think of what the word millionaire is, clearly a millionaire is somebody with lots of money, right? At least $1 million. So a LifeonAIRE, to put it very simply, is somebody with lots of life. And to make that even more simple, it's life on your terms. Because your terms, Steve, are going to be different than my terms, different than my wife's terms, and everybody else listening to this call. And so, how do we design a life? As cheesy as that sounds, because some people go, is this life coaching, and are you a life coach and all this stuff? I hate that word. But the fact of the matter is, if, I'm a strategic businessman, which means I like strategy, I like business, I like to make money, but I don't want to do it at the expense of everything else in my life. So if I want to have this great life, the very first thing I have to do is define, what does that even look like? For me, what does it mean to have a good life? And my definition is going to be different than yours. That's why there's not everybody can't copy off of each other. You've got to have each different people go through the process. So what does a great life look like? What does an ideal life look like? And then how do you build that and have your business serve your life rather than what most everybody else does? Everybody else just kind of says, let me build a business, and then someday when the business makes a lot of money, then I'll be able to have this life and the cars and the trips and all the fun stuff. And we say let's do the exact opposite. Build the life first, design what you want that to look like, and then let's build a business that serves every single thing that you just said you wanted out of life.
Okay.
So that's as fast as I can describe it now, which I know isn't very fast yet. But it's in a nutshell, it's life on your terms. How do you build that?
Yeah, that's great. And when I describe it, I do it in a very similar fashion. I usually say, it's all about these nooks and crannies that are left over. And you can have nooks and crannies that are left over once you build a business first, and then you try to fit life into these nooks and crannies. And that is how conventional wisdom out there in the business world, as you've seen now, you've coached hundreds of people, right? And you've helped a lot of these people turn their lives around to where now they're building the life first, and then they're fitting business into the nooks and crannies that exist, myself included. And I've been fortunate to have been coached by both you and Steve Cook, and to allow me to kind of put these things in place. Like last year when my family went to Florida for the winter and snowbirded, that all came out of a LifeonAIRE vision. So absolutely, man, totally agree with the way you explained that. I love the way you explained it.
And I should mention, you don't just wake up one day and say, I have this great business and I'm going to move to Florida tomorrow. If you want that life, it takes a little bit of planning. It takes a little bit of strategy. You can't just wake up and have this life, just like most people don't just wake up and have $1 million in their bank account, right? There's some planning that goes into it. Same thing with life. But most people today are so busy focused on the business aspect of it that they forget the life piece, because the life piece initially isn't sexy, know? Well, usually people come to me and that first thing they'll say is, just show me how to make the money and then I'll figure out all that other crap later on.
Yeah.
So that's not how it works.
Right. Absolutely, man. Well, tell me a story, Shaun. Tell me about tell me an extreme, perhaps, scenario where somebody came in and their life was just completely broken down because their business had completely taken over their life, and you coached or somehow helped them implement the LifeonAIRE strategy and turn their life around as a result.
Gosh, we got so many. I'll give you one of somebody that you know. I won't say his last name on here, but you know him. His name's Mike. Now I coach a couple guys who are dentists, so unfortunately I sort of blend some of the stories together on accident. So I don't mean to falsify any of this, but get the gist of the story. This guy Mike came to us a few years ago, and he's a dentist, and he's been in the dental business for many years. Matter of fact, his wife's parents are dentists, his wife's grandparents were dentists, his parents were dentists, and so on. And so here's this guy who has a dental practice. He works as a dentist. He makes really good money. And the job, matter of fact, they call it the golden handcuffs, because for every day of the week Mike works, he makes $100,000. So if he works 3 days a week, he makes $300,000 a year. If he works 5 days a week, he makes $500,000 a year. So really good money. But he also has a lot of student loans that are attached to becoming a dentist. He's got a lot of expenses. He's got really high insurance. Mm-hmm. He's got a really nice house, not too far actually from where you live. Mm-hmm. And he is a great guy. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is, he never really, really wanted to become a dentist. Now, what does this have to do with real estate investing? I'm getting there, I promise. Mm-hmm. But he gets into the dental practice because he wants to basically earn his wife's hand in marriage. And when he went to his wife's parents to ask for her hand in marriage, originally he was a cello player. And her parents said, no, you can't marry my daughter because you don't have a stable income. Now, Mike was a phenomenal cello player. He could have turned that into a great career for him, and he loved it. It was where his passion was and everything else. But I found out years later, after he had gone to a LifeonAIRE event, that he decided to become a dentist because it was safe and secure, and that was what it was going to take to get his wife's parents to say yes to get him to marry his daughter, their daughter. So he became a dentist not because it was his own vision, but because it was what somebody else told him to do. Mm-hmm. And, okay, now you say, what does that have to do with me as a real estate investor? Well, all of us, I believe, are doing something in our business that either doesn't match our strengths, that we hate doing, or, we just feel like it has to be done, or even worse, nobody can do it better than us, right? Mm-hmm. And we've all got those things in our business that we've told ourselves that we just have to do, or some of you even, matter of fact, are doing aspects of the business that don't even fit you at all, but it's what some speaker told you should do because they flashed a bunch of checks on the screen, or you listened to a webinar, or you saw them selling their course or something else, and next thing you know, you saw what their life looked like and you wanted to be like theirs. That's exactly what Mike did with the dental practice. He thought, well, that's going to give me the safety and security that I want, so I'm going to go in that direction. The problem is that never fit his vision because he had one. right? So,
Yep.
you know, some of you, like, I used to teach short sale real estate flipping. And I would have people come to me all the time and they'd say, show me how to make $1 million short sale flipping. Well, the truth of the matter is short sales are not for everybody. They're very paperwork driven, paperwork intensive. They require lots of attention to detail. And if that's not you, you're probably not going to do very well in that regard. Some people got into the business because they wanted to be rehabbers and they like making something ugly turn into something really pretty. And then they try to do a short sale business and they can't figure out why they're failing at it. It's because it doesn't fit their vision. It's not their vision.
Sure.
Make sense?
Sure. So with that being said, if somebody's listening to this, you know, describe an ideal LifeonAIRE student. Who is this for? Who is this not for?
So it is for anybody who wants to take their life from where it is and get to the next level. So we've got brand new beginners that have never done any business at all, stay-at-home moms, college students. We've even had high school students come. But it's also for the experienced guy. We've got another guy that I started coaching this last year. This guy's got a wonderful business. He makes lots and lots and lots of money. Most of you on this call couldn't spend the amount of money that this guy makes. But he works 80 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And when he's not working, guess what he's doing? He's thinking about working.
Yep.
You know, and when he goes, I've got another student. Here's an example. This guy named Alan that I know real well. Alan has 1,100 rental properties. Mm-hmm. That's like a city, right? Right. 1,100. And I used to really look up to Alan because every time I was around him, the phone would be ringing. You know, he'd always have these deals going. People were always calling him, asking him for a new deal. He would call me and he'd say, hey, man, I just put another 50 units under contract. And, you know, he pulls up in his $150,000 super cool car. You know, he's got the $3 million house. And I'm getting to know Alan. I'm like, you know, tell me what your life's like, dude. I look up to you. This looks super cool. You got to have, not on top of that, he's like a professional bodybuilder. He's got a gorgeous wife, beautiful little girl. It's like everything you could possibly want.
Yeah.
God has, right?
Yeah.
Get to know him a little bit more, and I find out about his life, and I find out, Alan, I said, what does your schedule look like on a weekly basis? And he said, well, basically Monday through Friday it looks the same. He said, I get up at like 6 a.m., I work out for about 45 minutes to an hour. He said after that I start working, and I usually wrap up my day around 7 p.m. And then I get home, I kiss my daughter goodnight, my wife goes to bed early, and I usually get to work then. After they go to bed, I get to work till about midnight. Mm-hmm. I thought, you do this every day? And he said, no, the weekends. He said, the weekends I can do whatever I want. I said, so what do you do on the weekends? He said, well, like on Saturdays, if it's the wintertime, I usually shovel all the driveways of my rentals. I'm like, what? You know, and he said, if it's the summer, I love the summer because I mow all the lawns of my rentals. And I'm like, what? You know, what do you do on Sundays? And he goes, well, Sundays are my day where, you know, nobody works. But he goes, that's the day I can get all my numbers done. I can do all my planning. And
yeah.
When I'm looking at that, I'm thinking, you know, the way that I just looked up to this guy so much 10 minutes earlier, and now when I find out what his life looks like, mm-hmm. I sit here and I go, I don't know if I want all that, you know? Yeah. So I ask a different question now. If there's things like that I want to have, how can I have that but also have a life? You know, It doesn't mean that you can't own 1,100 rentals.
Right.
It just, is that really what you want? Is that what you want?
Mm-hmm.
Or is that what somebody said would be really cool?
Right. So along with that, I once had somebody who was a very successful real estate investor tell me when I kind of pressed them for what did they want out of their life, what made them happy, what was kind of their passion, what was their joy. And after a lot of thought, they told me that their passion, their joy was business. And this is somebody who, in my opinion, was kind of like your example there. So I know that part of the LifeonAIRE vision process is to go through all these different categories, and that's part of what you do, what you will be doing at the March, early April event here in D.C. But I will wonder, Shaun, what you would say to that person.
Well, first of all, maybe that is their vision. I'm not here to judge anybody's mm-hmm. vision or tell them what to write or what not to write. If that's what they want out of life, then great. But mm-hmm. more often than not, the person who says that you don't get it. I like working 80 hours a week. Most of the time, they've been working that schedule for so long that they've forgotten what they used to like before they used to work 80 hours a week. And I'll give an example because I know you know the guy. There's a guy in our coaching group named Ned. He's a huge tax sale guy, actually in the Baltimore area there, Ned Carey. And he came to the very first LifeonAIRE event that we did, I think back in 2009 or maybe 10. And he said, he goes, you don't understand. He goes, everything on my vision is like work related. And I said, okay, well, read me. Like, what are some of the things that you put down for your personal hobbies? Mm-hmm. And he said, well, I love to go to the tax sale. Mm-hmm. When we do this process, I should mention, we have people work on their business last, mm-hmm. because for most business people and entrepreneurs, they go to business first most of the time. So we have them, like at this event, you're going to actually create your personal vision first, and then we'll figure out how to fit business in later. But as Ned was doing the exercise, he's like, for his personal gratification, he's writing down that he loves looking up comps on properties, and he loves going to the tax sale. And I said, no, what do you like to do? Like, if you had some free time, what would you do? And he goes, I would go driving around and look at houses. I'm like, Ned, get in the exercise. No business, just personal.
Right.
And in Ned's case, he legitimately could not think of anything personal that he enjoyed to do outside of work.
Right.
And I said, Ned, are you in a relationship right now? And he said, no. And I said, do you want to be in a relationship with a woman? And he said, very much so. And I said, okay, well, let's start with that. And it had been a while since he'd been in a relationship. And then I said, I'm going to take a little stab at something. I said, Ned, I'm guessing you've been working this schedule, because how many hours a week do you work right now? And he goes, that's just it. It's like 70 or 80, and that's exactly what my vision says I should be doing, I said, Ned, I'm going to take a stab that you've been working that schedule for probably a really long time, I'm guessing, more than 5 or 10 years, right? And Ned, who was in his 50s, I believe at the time, he said, yeah. He said, come to think about it, I've been working the schedule since I was like 14. I said, you've been working 70 hours a week since you were 14? And he said, yep. Apparently, when he was young, he had a situation happen. He had to be the breadwinner in the family. And long story short, like, it was either he bring home the bacon or nobody does, and they all basically die. Mm-hmm. So he learned at a very young age to work really hard. So it had been so long since he had been working that schedule that he had no clue what else he liked to do, and quite frankly had never spent the time to even explore that. Mm-hmm. So, and I get this all the time, student after student after student that comes that thinks, I love my business, and that's great. I want you to love your business. Your business should fit every aspect of your vision, but there's more to life than just business. Mm-hmm. And most people, especially that have been working that type of schedule for a long time, they forget this. Mm-hmm. I've got here, Jason Roberts is another example. Mm-hmm. He had he was making millions of dollars per month in his mortgage business.
Wow.
And he said, I got no problems with how my life is living right now, but after me digging and digging and digging, I found out one of the things he always wanted to do but never had time to do was take helicopter lessons. He wanted to learn how to fly a helicopter. Mm-hmm. And, about a year later, after I got him to take helicopter lessons, and, he's in a relationship now, and he's doing all these fun things in life, it wasn't until a year later that he came back and said, man, I didn't even know I was missing back then, but I was missing, by working 70 or 80 hours a week, I was missing so much of life. And he goes, don't get me wrong, I love what I do. Man, I was missing out on a lot of life.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes people don't even know what they're missing, man.
Yeah, that's very, very, very true. And, I don't think that you have to work that many hours to realize that sometimes. Sometimes at the end of a particularly hard week for me, I'll look back and say, man, I missed out on this, I missed out on that. And it's very revealing. It's really interesting. Let's talk about you for a second, Shaun.
Sometimes people think that you can only have one or the other, and they look at people, sometimes as entrepreneurs especially.
Yeah.
There's even speakers out there today that will really preach hardcore, you got to put in the time, you got to be willing to work. Mm-hmm. And I do agree with that, but why can't you have all of it?
Yeah.
Why can't you have a great work life, a great personal life? Listen, I want to be a great businessman and make lots and lots of money this year, but I also want to be a good father. Mm-hmm. And I also want to be a good husband. And I also want to be a good friend. And I can't be all of those things if I'm at the office 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you, tell me something that you have recently accomplished on your personal LifeonAIRE vision.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, one little goal, this is silly, but one little goal that we had that we just pulled off last week is, do you know what a razor is? Like a four-wheeler razor, almost like a dune buggy kind of a thing?
No, I thought you were talking about like a razor scooter, like a kid's scooter.
No,
No,
man,
I know.
we just bought, it's like a four-wheeler, but you drive it like a car.
Okay.
And it's got 4 seats in it, and it's just a total redneck hobby.
Okay.
Family has four-wheelers, and we like to go camping, and we like to go blaze through these trails. We have a membership to a place called Cloud9 here in Missouri, and it's just a camping place. So we had a goal to go buy one of these razors, and they're expensive. When it's all said and done, they're probably $24,000 for this stupid thing you're going to beat up and drive through the woods, and it's going to get trashed anyway.
Right.
In order to get it, we made some other goals for ourselves that when we hit these goals, some of the more financial goals, when we hit these goals, then we'll give ourselves permission to go buy the razor. As long as we hit these other goals first, we can't go into debt to get the razor, and we got to get a smoking deal on a razor. So we hit that goal financially. I did not go out and borrow money to get the razor. I went out and paid cash for it, and we found one that was like 6 months old that somebody just bought. They barely drove it, and we got it for half of what a new one would cost. We got it for $12,000.
Nice.
That's kind of something fun, but we got the kids involved with that. And the kids were kind of like, hey, Dad, are you working towards such and such because you want to hit that goal so we can get our new razor and we go camping?
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. Next week, we're going camping all week.
That's awesome, man. You brought up a very interesting thing there. You kind of touched a little bit on debt-free. You did not want to go into debt to buy the razor. Can you talk a little bit about that? It seems to be a common LifeonAIRE theme.
Yep. So, all right. So there's going to be, as you start going through this vision casting process, there are going to be things that are inhibiting you from living that life. Whatever life you write down in your vision, there's going to be things that are inhibiting you from living that right now. That could be lots of things. It could be current obligations as far as your calendar is concerned. Like when I got started, I'll give you an example here. One of the things that was really sort of sucking the life out of me is I was doing about $5,000 or $6,000 a month in marketing in my real estate investing business, and all of those calls were going to my cell phone. And I was doing that because I had this belief that nobody can answer the phone better than me, and I don't want to waste that call going to somebody else or to a voicemail or something like that. And so I used to take the calls all the time. So dinner time, I would take the calls. 6 o'clock in the morning, I would take the calls. If one came in at 10 o'clock, I felt like I either had to answer it or I was wasting marketing money. And so to me, that was an obstacle that was in the way of living my vision because I was a slave to my phone every single time it rang. Even if I was out to dinner with my wife, if the phone would ring, I would answer the phone. So that's one obstacle that was in the way of living my vision. So when I identified what the obstacle was, I had to say, how am I going to still run my business without being a slave to my phone all the time? Well, maybe I can answer at certain hours of the day, and maybe certain hours of the day you can go to a live answering service, or maybe I can hire somebody to answer the phone or something. But I can't have a life like I want and still answer the phone. So that's one obstacle. But debt is kind of the same thing for a lot of people. So, usually when I ask somebody, or if I'm in a room and I say, how many of you in here want to quit your job? There's always, out of 100 people in a room, there's like 60 people that want to quit their job. So I say, well, why can't you right now? The reason most people can't is because they say, well, because the debt, or the job pays my bills, right? In other words, I have debt, I have obligations, and if I cut off the job, then I can't support any of these obligations. And to me, that's a big thing with debt. When you are in debt, that is an obligation that if you have integrity, you will follow through on. And it has the ability, potentially, to direct your vision. And I'm very, very careful anymore with anything that could take my vision in an opposite direction of anything I had planned. And by the way, I should mention, I was the short sale guy for years, right? So I've done more than 300 short sale flips. I've seen every single reason in the book as to why people get behind on payments. And I will tell you this, out of the probably 1,000 appointments I've gone on over the years of people losing their home in foreclosure, not one of them ever meant to be there.
Right.
Not one of them ever got into the deal or into the investment property or into their house or whatever it is and said, someday I'm going to default on this loan. They all thought they could handle it.
Yep.
And when they couldn't, did they change aspects of their life to try to do whatever they could to stop that foreclosure from happening over there? Yeah. So I'm just very, very careful of anything that has the power to redirect my vision somewhere else. And to me, I will tell you, when I was $1.1 million in debt about 6 years ago, I was a servant to my debt. I was a slave to it. I worked for it all the time. I consulted my debtors basically before I went on vacation. I thought about my debt before I spent any money. I thought about debt when I figured out how much money I needed to have in my bank account. I mean, it controlled me, and I think it does that for most people too.
Yeah.
But you get to decide if you want debt in your vision. You can keep it in there. But here, last thing I'll say is this.
Yeah.
I've gone through this process now with thousands of people all around the country. I've never met one single person that when they sat down to do their vision, there was a debt category in their vision where they said, I really want to be in lots of debt.
Yeah.
They haven't. But it's a vehicle to get what you want faster. So they've used that as a vehicle, but it was never part of their vision. So I would just start to ask a different question. If there's something that I want, even if it's a rental property, I would ask, how can I get the rental property without going into debt to get it? And what I find is there's lots of creative ways that you can stay out of debt and still get the thing that you wanted to get without going into debt to get it.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those almost like a law of unintended consequences. You want to achieve a certain goal, and the easy way is to go out and borrow the money. And then next thing you know, you turn around and next year sometime you all of a sudden look back and say, man, I really created a big mess for myself that now I have to get out of, kind of thing. And a lot of people, like you say, don't go into it intentionally trying to get themselves messed up with all this debt, but it happens. And then a market downturn is a great way to find out who you owe money to and how much you owe and all that stuff. And you just can't plan a market downturn. It just kind of happens. And hey, now look at what's happened. So I totally get that. Let me ask you another question here. Give me something that you've recently added to your LifeonAIRE vision.
That I've added, like in terms of business, personal, any of that?
Oh, I was thinking more on the personal side, but whatever you'd like to share is fine.
This is a good one. So I just met a guy recently. His name is James Comparato, and he is I've been wanting to take my guitar playing to another level, and I just reached out to this guy actually in the last 2 weeks. And I asked him if I could pay him to shadow him a little bit and this guy is phenomenal guitar player. You especially should look him up on Facebook.
Okay.
He's so unbelievably good. And I thought if I'm going to learn, I might as well go learn from somebody who's not just like average. I want somebody who's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to him, and he didn't give lessons anymore, but I was surprised to find out that he said he would give me lessons. It's $60 an hour, which is a little bit pricey for guitar lessons, but I figure I'm willing to pay a little bit more to go to the guy who is the best of the best. So that's one thing that I actually had that on my vision for a while, and I wasn't doing anything about it.
Yep.
And finally, I saw it there sitting on my vision. Which, by the way, when you guys come to the event, if you come, we encourage you to keep this vision in front of you regularly, because if it's not, you kind of forget about stuff that you said is important, but then you don't do it. And this was one of those aspects that it was sitting on my vision for a while, and I wasn't doing anything about it. And I wasn't doing anything because I thought, he's not going to teach me. I don't know anybody that's really good that's going to teach me. But I just reached out to him on Facebook. I don't even know the guy, and he said he would gladly teach me, that I could come to his house. He's going to show me all his gear. So I'm pretty pumped about it.
That's really, really cool. What kind of style?
Man, he can kind of play everything, but it's real kind of rocky blues, kind of 70s type rock and blues type stuff. But he's good. That's
cool. Very good, man. All right, man. So let's talk a little bit. I want to ask you some controversial type of questions, but before we get into any of that, let's talk a little bit about the event. So we've got the event coming up. It's going to be at the Sheraton in Tyson's Corner, DC area. Very easy for everybody to get to in the DMV area. We've got March 31st through April 2nd. Shaun, tell me a little bit about what that's going to look like, what folks should expect who attend that.
Okay, so a couple things. One, it is a 3-day workshop. This is not just a seminar you're going to come sit down in for 3 days and be bored out of your mind listening. We're going to put you to work during the 3 days. So come well rested, I should say. But it is designed for you to leave at the end of the 3rd day with your vision pretty much crystal clear. And so we're going to spend a lot of time asking you questions that are going to be tough. Some of the questions we're going to ask you are going to be challenging. Most people have never asked and answered the type of questions that we are going to be asking you at this event. And I will tell you this, the majority of certainly the American population today spends more time planning a wedding than they do planning their life. goal of this is to let's sit down and let's come up with a plan. And I've got a strategic way to take you through this process so it's not confusing. Even though the questions we're going to ask are challenging, you're going to be able to go through it and have fun in the process. We have a lot of fun for 3 days. And at the end of the 3 days, you'll have a very specific, not just the vision, but a very specific path on how to get from where you are right now to where you ultimately want to be. And, I wish I could say I could teach you how to do that in 15 minutes, but it is a process. And it takes us 3 days to get through it. So I'll be bringing some of our coaching students that have actually gone through this process with us, and they're going to be sharing some of their stories. So you'll hear my story, you'll hear their stories, and I promise you, you will relate a lot to at least one of the people I got coming, because they've got some pretty. I mean, your story. What? Yeah, your guy know you well enough. What's happened to you since you started going through this process?
Well, I mean, it's completely changed my life, and it's been the foundation upon which I built everything else. And I think one of the things that I just want to tell the folks out there that know me very well is that I needed to do this in the beginning. It wasn't easy. But it allowed me to build the business that I have today. It allowed me to travel. It allowed me the freedom. And it allows me to essentially work on my real estate business 10 hours or less per week. I think the other thing I really want people to know is that I did this 3-day workshop probably 3 or 4 years ago. And even though I had studied the LifeonAIRE stuff and had done my LifeonAIRE vision for many years before that, it wasn't until I actually went through this 3-day seminar that everything kind of really catapulted for me. And we were able to do the snowbird lifestyle and all that stuff. And I brought my wife along with me too. So any of you with a spouse out there who might be considering doing this sort of thing, it is so powerful when you bring your spouse or your friends along. It's very powerful because you can hold each other accountable. We came home, we started a LifeonAIRE for Couples group. But my point is this: I'm coming back. I'm going to see you. I'm going to be there. And I'm happy to share my experiences with folks if they want to come up to me and ask me about it. But I am going to do a refresher because I feel like I need it. Even though I update my vision frequently, even though I read my vision frequently, it's just great to be in a room with folks who are doing this together. And it's one of those things that's extremely profound. I think when we sit here and talk about it, maybe to some people it doesn't sound like something they might need, but my thing to them would be, you sit down and you do it, and you look back and you say, wow, I really needed to do that. So it's one of those things you don't really realize,
Everybody's got a different reason to be there. Some are coming because they go, you know what, this is the year I want to quit my job. But they also said that last year.
Right.
Some people are saying this is the year that I need to get my health back in order. Yeah. Some people are really wanting to work on their finances, and this has everything to do with your finances. Matter of fact, we're going to take you through something on the very first day called the 4 stages to financial prosperity. That if you follow these 4 stages in the right order, I'm not going to say you're guaranteed success because people throw that word around all the time, and I think it's a bunch of crap. But the fact of the matter is, it's really hard to screw up if you follow these 4 stages in the right order. It's really hard to screw up. You almost can't screw it up, But very few people do this, and I will tell you this is not taught in schools. They don't teach you money management in schools. They don't teach you how to design a life based on your vision being the foundation of everything. And not only that, the reason, tell me if I'm right here, Steve, when you came to the event the first time, even though you had heard some of this stuff before, it forced you to spend 3 days working on it and getting it done right then and there, right?
Absolutely, yep.
And what happens when we say we're going to do that later on and we get back to work Monday or real life starts to kick in?
It just doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. That's why I say it's a workshop. So when you come spend 3 days with us, not only are you going to get the event, but we're also going to throw in some other stuff to help you live that vision too. So even if you can't make the event, you can still sign up and do the home study version of it. That'll take you about 45 minutes a week to go through. It'll take a number of weeks for you to get through it. Or if you're an animal, you can go through it all in a couple days. But that's designed to help you through it. So we're going to give you guys that as well on the call here today. There's, let's see, what else? If you want to learn how to invest debt-free, whether it's buying rental properties debt-free, and I'm not talking about saving up $1 million to go buy rentals. We've got strategies where you can have rental properties free and clear here in the next 6 months to a year without having to save up to buy them. And when it comes to paying off debt, between me and my business partner, Steve Cook, we've paid off $4.5 million in debt. And I mean, it's gone. So if you want to pay off debt, we've got another debt-free investing home study course that we're going to give you guys. And let's see, my gosh, what else? The LifeonAIRE book. We've got an Amazon best-selling LifeonAIRE book that you guys are going to get access to as well. And all of that comes with the cost of tuition for the event. Should I mention that right now?
Please go ahead. Yep.
So basically, for Steve's people on here, we got a deal where you're going to get all of that stuff. It's it's about $2,000 worth of stuff. You guys are going to get the 3-day event, the LifeonAIRE book, debt-free investing home study course, the LifeonAIRE home study course, all of this wrapped up in a bundle. You get to come for $397. If you want to bring a spouse or somebody else, you can bring one other spouse for an extra $100. So it'd be $397 for one person or $497 for two people. And if you want to sign up, you can do it really simple. You just go to LifeonAIRESpecial.com. And LifeonAIRE is just like the word millionaire. Maybe I'll spell it out real quick. It's LifeonAIRE.com. I'm sorry, LifeonAIRE Special.
LifeonAIRE Special. Yep.
That's the page we set up just for Steve, just for your students, man. And so not everybody else gets that deal, but that includes everything. Everything that I just talked about, you guys are getting that with the 3-day event.
Yeah. And actually, all the folks need to do is just click the button below, and that'll take you directly to that page. And I'd like to announce an additional discount for my personal coaching students. If you get in touch with me and you know how to get in touch with me, we're going to give you a special. It's going to be half off. That's only for folks that are in my coaching program currently being coached by me. So that's awesome. Very much looking forward to it. Again, I'm sending my assistant. I'm sending some of my good friends. I've got a brother-in-law flying up from Florida that's going to go. I'm just telling everybody that they need to. We're gonna be caravanning up there from Southern Maryland. So totally excited about that. So
and here's what I'll tell you about the event too.
Yep.
Because some people go, not only even if that's the greatest deal on earth, right? And you obviously have no way of fully understanding what kind of a deal that is until you attend. But let's just assume that it is the greatest deal on earth, financially. It's still 3 days of your life. And that is a big commitment. I do not take that lightly at all. I will tell you this for sure. Do whatever you got to do to get there. Call in sick to work, get a babysitter, bring the kid with you. We've had some people that brought their kid, that brought their infant with them, and then when the baby starts crying, they run out the hall.
Right.
Do what you got to do to be there, but get your butt there. When I said before, most people spend more time planning a wedding or a party than they do their life. This is true. And you're going to go through this process on your own, so do whatever you got to do to get there. And here's what I'll tell you. Here's my little guarantee. When you come, attend the first 2 whole days. And if it's not everything, if it's not like 20 times more than you ever thought it would be, just come see us at the end of the second day. Give me your workbook and just say, I don't like this. I want a refund. And I'll refund you 100%. And we'll call it a day. This is one that we are doing in your area. I have never done an event in D.C. before, and I don't have any plans to do one again, so there's also no travel. And, use this as your excuse to get it done. You got pretty much zero risk.
Yeah, great, awesome.
You won't do that, I should mention. I've been offering that guarantee now for 3 years. I have never once had to give anybody's money back, but it's there for you anyway.
Sure, awesome. And for those of you who don't know Shaun very well, Shaun is a very accomplished speaker. He's very, very, very good in front of the room, and he will keep your attention. He will not allow you to fall asleep during his speaking, and he just does a great job.
In case you're wondering, everybody goes, "Are you drinking wine during the interview?"
So, all right, man. Well, let's get into some fun stuff before we close out here. Some stuff that we've been teasing everybody here. All right, man. So I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions, kind of Tim Ferriss style here. So, Shaun, what is something that you believe in that other people think is insane?
Time is not money. Time is life.
Time is not money. Time is life. That's good.
Yeah. I firmly believe that the amount of money that you make this year is not a direct correlation to how many hours you work.
That's great.
I firmly believe that. And I know that now. I didn't used to believe that. I thought if I wanted to make more money this year, I got to put in the time, I got to put in the hours, and that is absolutely not true. I'm over at a buddy of mine's house right now. His name is Joe McCall. He's a national speaker, and he's got a great phrase. He said, last year, I stopped asking how am I going to get this done, and he said now I ask who am I going to get this done. And it is amazing, man. That's a little change in belief, but I do not believe anymore that more time equals more money.
That's great. When you think of the word successful, Who's the first person who comes to mind and why?
Wow, that's a great question. Had you asked me that 5 years ago, I don't think I would have been able to answer that. But now, I'll throw out a couple names. Chuck Bauman is one of them. You are one of them for sure. Steve Cook, my business partner, is one of them. Jason Roberts is one of them. Jason Wojciechowski is another. I don't know if I mentioned this. All of these people are within the LifeonAIRE organization. And that is not me being biased. That is, I'm going to tell you that the hardest thing about this lifestyle, my wife and I are going on a camping trip next weekend. As I mentioned, we got the razor and everything else. I invited no less than 5 other friends and families of ours to go with us. Mm-hmm. None of them can go. Once you start living this lifestyle and having the freedom, the biggest problem you're going to have is very few people can do it with you.
Sure.
And, you've experienced that, right?
I have, absolutely. Yep.
That sounds so stupid to say that, like, oh, once you get a great life, know what? Yeah. But, man, when I ask other people questions like this, their first response is, no, I can't, instead of, how could I?
Yeah.
And, I don't know, I got off subject, but...
Well, no, that's really good, and I just want to add something to that, if you don't mind. I have a couple of friends, a lot of folks around here. We are a bedroom community for D.C., which means folks sleep here, but they really work up in town. So in other words, we're heavy commuter county. 80-90% of the people who live in this county drive into D.C. to work, which is really only a 35-minute drive from where I'm sitting right now. However, it can be a 2.5, 3-hour commute depending on accidents and construction and stuff like that. And I haven't done that for years, probably 15 years. My first 4 years out of college, I was a commuter, so I know the struggle, I know what it's like, but I never had a 2.5-hour commute. That's just craziness. But the bottom line is that, I saw some friends post on Facebook the other day a picture of the traffic that they were sitting in saying, basically I hate my life. This is crazy. This is my life. I'm dying behind the wheel sitting in traffic. And, I think along with your friends not being able to make the camping trip, I think a lot of times we take this stuff for granted, the lifestyle that you and I are able to live, because we've implemented the LifeonAIRE vision, because we have taken the time to think through it, and because we have created businesses that fit around our life. So I just throw that out there because one of the number one gripes I get from folks before they join my coaching program is, Steve, I need you to be able to help me quit my job. I need you to help me make this real estate thing work because I need to leave my job. So, I feel you on that totally.
Man, so I am a firm believer that you are a product of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Mm-hmm. So now here's something interesting. So if you're spending time with the guys I mentioned, I got a lot of band friends and a lot of friends from years ago that if I love them to death and I still love to spend time with them, but if I spend all of my waking moments with them, most of them hate the job that they're in. Mm-hmm. Most of them spend a lot of time at bars, and nothing wrong with going to have a beer. I just don't want to do that all the time. So I had to design what do I want my life to be about. I can't just default to whatever my friends are going to do. Mm-hmm. I got to decide what I want to do. And if you're a product of your environment, it's like when you came to the group. I remember last year when you came to the group and you said, maybe a year and a half ago or so, and you said, guys, I've got an idea. I want to be a snowbird flipper. I want to go live half a year in Florida and live half a year in Maryland. Mm-hmm. And did anybody in the group tell you couldn't do it?
No way.
No. Instead, they're sitting here going, man, you got to figure this out. How are we going to figure this part out? You're going to have this challenge and so on. But they're all encouraging you to do it. Most of my old friends, the first thing they would think, first of all, they wouldn't even think to ask, could I go live somewhere else 6 months a year? And if they even had that thought, it would immediately get shut down because they've got a filter. Mm-hmm. And I'll talk about that at the 3-day event. We filter aspects of our vision with what we think is possible, what other people told us was possible, and what our surroundings are doing also. So if you don't know anybody who's ever gone to Florida 6 months a year, and you're not in an environment that would support that, the chances of you doing it are slim to none.
That's so true.
The only reason you come to 3-day event is to be in that environment for a few days and see examples of how other people are living that aspect of their life. If that's the only thing you got out of it, then you should be there.
That's
of course,
great.
You'll more than that, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's great, man. Can I ask you a couple more? This is fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What is the worst advice you see or hear being dispensed in your world?
Oh, man.
We're going to piss somebody off today, so don't worry about it.
if I don't spend enough time explaining, I'm going to lose some people here, but I'm going to say it anyway. So I actually speak on stage with Robert Kiyosaki, which most of you guys know, especially your audience will know, who wrote the book Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
And so he really preaches the good debt, bad debt thing. And what's interesting is I am their number one requested speaker at their Rich Dad Poor Dad events, and I blatantly challenge that way of thinking. And what I mean by that is the whole good debt, bad debt thing basically says that bad debt is debt that doesn't pay you money, like if you go finance a car or your own house or something like that. And good debt is debt that if you get the debt, it's actually paying for itself. So like a rental property, if you get it rented out, then it's paying for itself and it's great, right? And I blatantly challenge that because that works great when it's rented and the people are paying you, right? But the minute somebody doesn't pay you, you don't get to call the bank and say, I'm sorry, Bank of America, my tenant didn't pay me the last 4 months, so I would like to postpone my payments. You don't get to do that.
All right.
So during those months where you're not getting paid, when the asset is not performing how you thought it would, it doesn't feel like good debt then, right?
Yep.
And so the belief that I will challenge people with is, how could you have the same thing? What you want is the asset. What you want is the rental property that's spitting out money every single month. So how could you have that without the negative downside too?
Yeah.
And there's lots of ways you could do it. I'll give you one example right now. Instead of taking on debt, it's possible to take on a funding partner that puts up the money for the property. It is not debt. You basically manage the property. You get a tenant in it. You get it rehabbed if you need to do that. Somebody else puts up the money, and you guys split rents. If I've got a strategy I can show you, and actually if you come to the event, you're going to hear all about this, the home study course we're giving you. If you do this and you do your numbers properly, the investor can get a 12% return on their money, and you can get basically an unlimited return on your money because all you're doing is putting in the legwork, and you can own that property free and clear in 1 year. Matter of fact, even up front, you've got a financial partner in the deal, but you've got no debt on it. Mm-hmm. So if that property goes vacant, there's no debt service to pay. And I've seen this get investor after investor after investor in trouble. Think about it for a second. If you've got, let's say, 10 rentals, is it possible that 3 of them could go vacant ever at once?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Yep.
There you go. Okay. Sorry, my screen was... So, a lot of times if you got 3 of those 10 rentals that go vacant at once, the 7 that are making money are paying just to cover the payments on the 3 that are vacant. And
Sure.
So, anyway, I blatantly challenge that, and only because I've found out other ways to do it without having to take on the debt. And so I'll challenge you with that too. And if you don't believe me, you're getting ready to get the home study course for free, and I'll show you in there.
That's awesome. Shaun, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
Wow, man, I would tell my 20-year-old self to ignore what society says that you're supposed to do and just go do what you want to do, regardless of whether or not you have a plan for how much money it's going to make, regardless of whether it's scary. I remember when I was just getting out of high school, I went to college, and I didn't want to be there. I didn't know why I was even going. As a matter of fact, I didn't last very long there, but had I been able to turn back time, I would have told myself, don't even bother going. I would have told myself, go out and explore life. And you have no clue what you want to do, and that's totally okay. And go have a ball figuring it out.
Yeah. That's great. 2 more. What do you believe is true even though you can't prove it?
Ask you that question back. What would you do?
What would I do about
Say it
which
again?
one? Which one? The 20-year-old self?
Yeah, what would you do? Yeah, what would you tell your 20-year-old self?
I can't say on this.
Really?
Gosh, man. I look back, Shaun, I've been so fortunate, man. It's one of those things. So often in life we feel like, man, am I really making the right decisions? Am I being led in the right, way and all that stuff? But when I look back at my past, for better or for worse, and it's always happened out the way it should have happened. I think a lot of people might like regret a relationship that they had or regret some choices that they made, but man, for me, when I look back and I look at those relationships and those choices, like they all happen for a reason. So I think I would probably tell my 20-year-old self the same exact thing, which is just keep on keeping on. I am so blessed that for better or for worse, man, the events of my life have led me to today. And I'm happy with the wife and the family and the life and the lifestyle and the business and all the connections and friendships that I've made. I'm just happy, man. I just can't imagine living a different life. And if I hadn't done what I did when I was 20, I wouldn't be where I am today, man. So I enjoy my natural rebellious type of nature, which in my 20s I most definitely had on full display. So we'll just leave it at that.
That's right.
Let me ask you, man, what do you believe is true, even though you can't prove it?
I believe in God. I believe God is the source of everything, and I have no proof. To me, I believe you can't see God just like you can't see the wind, but you can certainly see the effects of the wind.
Yeah.
And I believe God is 1,000% real, and I believe if you believe in Him, I believe. I don't mean to get too religious here on the call, but I believe if you believe in Him and you believe in Jesus, I believe you are saved.
That's great, man. All right, man, I got a JP style question, and we're going to end with this one here. Would you rather... No, I'm just kidding.
Uh-oh.
No, this isn't that bad. What is something really weird or unsettling that happens to you on a regular basis?
Weird or unsettling? Wow, that's a great question. I will tell you this. I teach these events for a reason, and most speakers won't admit this to you, but living this stuff and this lifestyle, it's worth it, but it's not always easy. And there are times when I'm in the middle of teaching an event, and I'm teaching it, and I'm not afraid to say this now out loud, but there's times when I'm in the middle of teaching something and I go, I'm not doing that anymore. It's like I know this is what I should be doing, and I've gotten away from doing it. And I teach this stuff. Like I should not be the guy that ever falters at any of this stuff, and even I do.
Sure.
And so, that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Well, that just goes to show you the power of the refresh, and that's one of the reasons that I'm so excited to come to the event on the 31st is just to be able to refresh my vision. Go over some of the stuff, even though I look at it. I won't say every single day, which is what I should be doing, but when I look at it regularly, I'm like, okay, yep, accomplished that, still need to accomplish that, still need to take the first step toward accomplishing that. But when you sit down and you kind of wipe the slate clean and you start all over from square one, it's invigorating, and so that's why I think it's very important for folks, even folks that seem to have a handle on this. This is not goal setting. This is not goal writing. This, to me, is more foundational than that. It's greater than that. You can base goals off of what we do here at this event, but to get a clean slate, to take these days to plan your life, it's just huge.
Do we have time for me to share one more story?
Please, man. Yeah, absolutely.
This is really relevant to what you just said. This is not a goal-setting event.
Mm-hmm.
Goals are important, but if you start setting goals without the foundation of the vision, you are in deep doo-doo. Mm-hmm. And here's why I say that. I don't know if do you remember this when you first started in the coaching group? Were you in when everybody gave me the challenge to write and record the song in my recording studio at home? Yeah. Were you part of the group?
Yep.
So if you remember this, when we have our coaching groups and we get together, before we finish our session, we always announce what we're going to accomplish between now and the next time we meet in about 4 months. Well, we used to only meet twice a year. Now we meet 3 times a year. So I used to have 6 months worth of stuff that I would announce that I'm going to do. And then we would do something fun where you would basically announce what you want to accomplish, and mm-hmm. everybody else in the room got to choose what your consequence was going to be if you didn't hit it. Mm-hmm. And so some fun with this. We come up with some crazy stuff. So everybody else took their turn, and of course I was coming up with these crazy consequences for them. One of the guys wanted to lose like 30 pounds, and so we were asking him, "Are you sure you want to lose 30 pounds? How committed are you?" And right. He's like, "I'm committed." So do you remember the consequence for that?
No, I don't.
The consequence was if he didn't hit his 30-pound weight loss by the 6 months between now and
the Speedo?
What's it? Oh, yeah.
The Speedo. Okay.
Or a Speedo at the next retreat that was 2 sizes too small.
That's right.
And he had to wear one of those signs that you put over your shoulders that says, "I'm fat and have no integrity."
Oh my gosh.
Rough. But we're laughing, and he's
right.
like, "Oh, that's rough." But we're like, "Listen, are you really going to lose 30 pounds or not? Because if you are, then you shouldn't really worry about it. But if you're really not committed, this really gets you to think."
Right.
So anyway, my goal was I wanted to accomplish a personal goal. I wanted to build a recording studio in my house. I wanted to write and record a full song, which means I had to buy all the equipment. I had to set up this unfinished basement. I had to turn it into a finished basement. I had to write a song, record it, learn how to use all the stuff, and do all that within 6 months.
Yeah.
Big, huge goal. And so I hit my goal. Now, by the way, the consequence for this, now that I gave everybody else these awful consequences, they give me the worst ones on earth.
Of course.
Remember? So they said, if you don't hit your goal, then you have to, I had 19 guitars at the time. They said, if you don't hit your goal, you have to sell all 19 guitars on eBay with no reserve in a 1-hour sale. And I was like, And then they said, no, that's not it. We're not finished. You have to basically, take all the money from that and go to this other guy's seminar, this guy who I think is a snake. And they said you have to pay him to be at the seminar using the money you sold your guitars with. And there's going to be a lot of money left over. So at the end of the seminar, you have to go up to him and say, this event was so good. Here's the rest of the money as a tip, right?
Right.
Just as I'm dying, they're like, that's not it. Then you have to put a video testimonial on that guy's website saying he's a better speaker than you and all that. I mean, they just kept going and going, right?
Right.
So the long story short is I hit my goal. But it was really hard. Matter of fact, to get all that stuff done in 6 months, I basically had to ignore everything else. My business suffered. My family life suffered. I didn't take on any other hobbies. At the end of the 6 months, I finished the song, and I hated music recording. I absolutely hated everything. I was working on it till 3 o'clock in the morning most nights, and I showed up to the next retreat with this stupid CD in my hand, and I threw it out. I'm like, here's the song. I freaking hate the song now. So I hit the goal, and I gave up everything else in the process.
Yeah.
That's what most of you are doing in business. That's what most people do. They hit their goals, or maybe not, but they give up so much of everything else that they claimed was important to them. That's why goal setting by itself does not work. If you don't have the foundation, the vision for the foundation of everything you're doing with your goals, you're going to start pursuing some goals that don't fit your vision. And second thing you'll do is you won't understand how to prioritize which of those goals should come first and second and third. Had I had my goals aligned with what I said was important to me, I would have put my family first back then, and I would have still had the goal to get the recording studio done, but not the way that I did it. The last entire week leading up to that event, I had to ignore my wife who had pneumonia because I had to finish this stupid song or else I had all these consequences. And so that's literally what I did. I had a 6-month-old baby at home, and I had a wife who had pneumonia, and I'm down in the recording studio finishing this stupid song. You know what I mean? So goal setting by itself does not work. It has to be more than goal setting. It has to be the vision. That's what we're going to spend 3 days doing.
Awesome. Let's talk about that event one more time. So it's going to be at the Sheraton in Tyson's Corner, March 31st through April 2nd. What time do people need to be there, Shaun?
It's usually going to be 9 to 5 each day. Some days we might finish a little early. Some days we might go a little bit later, depending on the questions. But it'll be very interactive. So come and man, it is fun. It really is fun. We're going to have a good time.
All right, cool. Just click the link below, and then that will take you right to the page. It's LifeonAIRESpecial.com. It'll take you right there. Shaun's worked out an awesome price for all of you guys who are on my list and all my followers. So I totally appreciate that, Shaun. I appreciate you taking the time to do this kind of fun, just little chat. I don't know if you do this stuff regularly or if this is different than when you normally talk about these events, but this was fun.
Yeah, man. Hey, I might even put you on the spot and ask you if when we're at the 3-day events that you're going to be there anyway, if we have time one day, can I kind of ask you to share a little bit about your story from the front of the room? Because I think
Sure, I'll start rehearsing now. Just kidding. Yeah, man, that's fine. No problem at all. So, all right, Shaun, well, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. We will see you March 31st, April 2nd, LifeonAIRESpecial.com. I'm going to be there. It's going to be awesome.
Last thing I'll tell you is you have to register now. I need to know who's coming. The room that we have only seats 120 people, and I'm promoting this at 2 places in D.C., so this absolutely, without a doubt, will sell out. and I don't have another room to go to if it gets beyond 120. So it absolutely will get to 120. Mm-hmm. I'm promoting this tomorrow night to about 160 people. Mm-hmm. The Saturday after that, I'm promoting it to another 200 people. And as a result, I'm just telling you in advance, sign up right now. You cannot just show up at the door and sign up there. I got to have workbooks printed. I got to have the seats available and all that stuff. So do it now. Don't procrastinate. Just get it done.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Shaun. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Thanks, brother.
All right. Thank you.